These are really complicated procedures, but if you break them down into race cars and gears and ping pong balls with columns of air, all of a sudden children are like, oh, I see this. And adults are also like, oh,
I see this.
I see this.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back with my new friend David Rives, and we are having a great time talking about science. He is the founder and CEO at the New Wonders Center and Science Museum in Tennessee. They're right outside of Nashville. You said about 30 minutes or so, right outside of Nashville?
About 35 minutes due west of Nashville, right off of I-40 there.
I love that. That's so cool. You're in a great area of the country. You're kind of just smack in the middle. Yeah. So people can come from all over the place to see it. We should do a Schoolhouse Rocked. That would be fun. We should do a Schoolhouse Rocked Wonders Center like field trip, and we can all meet up there. That would be super fun. I'm going to talk to Garrett.
I think you should do a live on location filming there. Yeah.
Oh, that would be so much fun. That would be awesome. Well, we'll talk more about that. But before we get back into our conversation, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. You guys hear me talk about them all the time. And if you've not yet checked them out, bjupresshomeschool.com. I know David is familiar with their curriculum. They've got great resources that are taught from a strong biblical worldview. And so that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, you guys. If you want science that's taught from a Christian perspective and a strong biblical worldview, BJU Press has it. So check them out, bjupresshomeschool.com. Well, David, welcome back to the podcast. I want to talk a little bit about sciences throughout the grades, because especially for new homeschool moms, when they're just getting into it or even just thinking about homeschooling, they're like, I don't know what to do with science. What am I even supposed to teach? I know for myself, that was, you go to school and you have your teacher who has their plan all laid out for the year, and you've got your teachers for every year, and they teach the science that the school tells them to teach. But it's not something that many moms think through. Like, oh, okay, my kid is now in third grade. What am I supposed to teach them? They're now in eighth grade. What am I supposed to teach them? And so I want to talk very quickly through what sciences are taught in the different grade levels. And so let's kind of start with elementary and middle school. And so I know elementary, middle school, we're talking about life sciences, earth science, physical science. Can we kind of break those up just briefly? We don't need to get into a big, deep discussion about those things. But as we're talking about, let's just start with life science. Like if we're going to teach life science to our elementary and middle school kids, what would that include and involve?
Well, we did start a website to try to help with this, and it is called thecreationsuperstore.com.
Oh, wow.
And it has over 2,200 different books, homeschool resources, and all of that laid out categorically, right?
Okay.
To try to make it easier. But when you think about, okay, so you said earth sciences, we're talking about things like the weather, things like our magnetic field that protects the earth. We're talking about things like the universe in general. But you don't have to get really broad, because as you get into older grades, then all of a sudden we delve into more of it. So it's like, hey, we live on a very special planet.
Yeah.
Our planet is specially designed for life. It has a breathable atmosphere. It has moderated gravity. We have a stable sun that allows us to exist, where the sun doesn't have any chances of going supernova anytime soon. When we look at the broader sense of things, we have our solar system, which is finely tuned and it's very organized. And then we have our galaxy, the Milky Way. Even our position in the galaxy helps support the life here on Earth, because we're not close to the center where we might be sucked into a black hole. We're not on the outer edges of the galaxy where we might not have the heavy elements that are in this studio, enough heavy elements to make the microphones that we're speaking on. No, instead, we're nestled between two arms of the Milky Way in the perfect spot for life. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about these earth sciences, you might talk about how they all are carefully crafted, and there are now so many resources that even a few years ago, we didn't have those things, that it makes it easy for you to pick up a few resources, teach your children confidently through those things, and And you don't have to be a science professor to do it. That's the exciting thing.
Oh, that's such a good reminder, because we so often feel like, I don't know all the things. None of us can know all the things, you guys. Come on. That's ridiculous. I mean, we can't know all the things, but that's why there are resources for us to help teach these things to our kids. So tell me what that website is again.
It's called creationsuperstore.com. creationsuperstore.com, and you can,
that's so
it's
cool.
categorized on the side. Like I said, I think we're over 2,200 different resources.
Okay.
Most of them are broken down a little bit more towards a junior high and high school level. So astronomy, chemistry, human anatomy, that sort of thing. But it's easy to get around there. We even have what we implemented as the Rives rating. And so I rate some of the top supplemental resources, right?
Okay,
Not necessarily the homeschool curriculum themselves.
So you've read all 2,000 plus resources. Wow. You must be a very fast reader. That's so cool, though. We'll put that link in the show notes, of course. So so elementary, middle school, we're talking life science. And I actually was looking up, like, okay, what exactly does life science involve? So we're talking about vertebrates, invertebrates, plant life, the human body, life cycles, habitats, environment, things like that. Earth science, we're talking about astronomy, geology, meteorology, oceanography, things like that involve the earth, of course. And then physical science, which I think is fascinating. And I have the hardest time understanding physical science, but that's the study of how things move and the structure and properties of matter and how non-living things change forms and all the things that make up physical science. So that I have a hard time with physical science. For some reason, my husband, he is brilliant. He's so crazy smart. And I forget what it was the other day. We were talking about something, but it was something physical science. And he was explaining to my daughter and I wish I could remember. See, it's because I don't fully understand it. He was explaining how something worked, and Lacey and I were just looking at each other like, what is he talking about?
Well,
and he knows exactly, it's fascinating.
But what you're referring to now can actually be a part of STEAM, right? Because you've got science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Well, so what you're referring to would fall more in the engineering and mathematics side, because it's trying to understand all of that. At the Wonders Center and Science Museum, we've got tons of kids' hands-on activities to spark that curiosity, even though it seems intimidating. So we've got gears that children can put in any configuration on a magnetic board, and a massive wall full of gears, and you can figure out gear ratios. Why do larger gears make this turn slower and smaller gears make it turn faster, right? We teach you about the Bernoulli principle by using ping pongs and air, and you can see how a column of air will contain the ping pong ball, just like the wing of an airplane provides lift for that airplane. We teach you things like the brachistochrone curve, right? We take these incredibly complex procedures, but then we put them down into something so simple as having two big, long racetracks on the wall, side by side. One looks like a drag strip, perfectly straight all the way down, and the other one has the brachistochrone curve. It has this drop-off at the first, and then it goes through a series of hoops, right? So in physics and engineering, we would normally think immediately, well, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So the straight track must be the fastest track. No. We teach you that if you have this exact curve, then the velocity of the car that you push down that track will start. And even though it goes up and down multiple hills, it'll still get to the bottom of the track faster. These are really complicated procedures, but if you break them down into race cars and gears and ping pong balls with columns of air, all of a sudden children are like, oh, I see this. And adults are also like, oh,
I see this.
I see this.
Science centers are so much fun. I love it when they have hands-on things like that where you can actually see, because it's so different than just reading about it in a textbook. You just, and I'm a very visual person, so I have to actually see things to really understand them. So that's so very cool. All right, high school. So as I was looking through high school, like, okay, what things are taught in high school? here are the high school courses that you would look to teach your kids. And here's the beauty of homeschooling, you guys. Teach what your kids love. Teach what is going to get them excited to learn about God and his creation. So obviously biology and chemistry, those are, I think, the ones that people always just come to the front of your mind, biology and chemistry, physics, again, the one that I'm like, it just makes my head spin. Environmental science, forensic science. This is so interesting. This is one I feel like when I was in school, I don't know about you, David, but when I was in school, no one ever talked about forensic science. Like it just, obviously it existed, but it wasn't a thing. It certainly wasn't taught in school, right?
No.
But forensic science is one that now, even in our homeschool co-ops, several of them in the Tulsa area where I live they offer forensic science curriculum. As a matter of fact, Master Books, if anyone's looking for forensic science, Master Books has a fantastic new forensic science curriculum. It's for, I think, 11th and 12th grade is what they recommend it for because it's a heavy topic, some of the things that they talk about. But it is, as far as I know, the first and only forensic science curriculum taught from a biblical worldview, which I think is just fascinating. So
we just actually picked that up in the Creation Superstore website. Yeah, I think it's the only thing out there right now.
It is. Yeah. There are a couple of other that I'm aware of. There are a couple of other forensic science curriculum, but none of them taught from a biblical worldview.
Right.
That's the only one.
I actually have a friend. I'll be with him in about 3 weeks. I lead a photo safari to South Africa every year and take families, kids, and adults as close to the animals as we can safely get. We go hot air ballooning over Africa. Wow. I take them to the cradle of humankind, which is where all of the supposed ape-like ancestors have been found, and debunk all of those myths of ape-human ancestors. But his daughter, I think, is just going into university for forensic science. And, yeah, so we're seeing a lot more of that type of thing in the very recent past. Yeah,
I think it's really neat. It's a topic that can be really hard to study, I think, as you're, just because forensics. But I think it's cool that we can now teach that from a biblical worldview. And then astronomy, zoology, oceanography, all those things, those are all encompassed in high school science. And so see what your kids like, how can you teach them these things, again, through the lens of scripture so that they can better understand God as creator? Because there's no sense in teaching science if you're not going to teach it from the perspective of God, right? Yeah. As creator. Then it's just a waste of your time. You're actually pointing them away from Christ instead of to him if you're teaching secular science in your homeschool. And so there are lots of resources.
We have two options.
Yeah.
Only two options that we can choose when we teach science to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. We can teach it from the perspective of, look at all of these incredibly designed, complex things. Look at what time and chance has accomplished. Mm-hmm. Or we can say, look at all of these incredibly designed, incredibly complex things. Look at how big our Creator is. Let's give Him glory for it. And that's the only correct response.
Right. Absolutely. So good. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, "I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Are you looking for a homeschool curriculum that goes beyond textbooks and truly engages your children in the joy of learning? Apologia's award-winning curriculum is written by homeschool parents to specifically meet your needs and captivate your students with hands-on activities and experiments that make learning unforgettable. With an easy-to-follow, open-and-go format, Apologia takes the stress out of planning and provides a simple roadmap that can easily be tailored to your family's needs. Explore live classes or self-paced courses designed to accommodate every student's unique learning style. Elevate your child's education, spark their curiosity, and nurture a lifelong love for learning with Apologia. Discover Apologia today at apologia.com. We are back with David. Man, this has been such a fun conversation, and I really, really, really very much would like to go to the Wonder Center now because it sounds amazing. And one of the things that you said you have there is that you have divided part of the museum into the different sciences. Talk about that for just a minute.
So when I got the spark to try to create this museum, I wanted it to be all Christian principles, but I wanted it to be something that would also attract families who knew nothing about that. So I call it the Wonders Center and Science Museum. It doesn't have a religious connotation to it, except it does, right? In the book of Job, we read a passage that says that God does great things past finding out and wonders without number. So I'll admit, I'm chewing that over in my head. It became the title of my first book. Dr. Danny Faulkner, PhD in astronomy, wrote the foreword to that book. But I'm chewing that verse over and I'm like, yeah, God has done great things past finding out. There are some things in this life we will never know. But the second part of the verse says, but he's also done wonders without number. There are an innumerable number of wonders that we can explore, that we can discover, that we can use scientific concepts to research, and then we can give him the glory for it. So it's called the Wonders Center because it's looking at God's wonders. And as you walk through, I wanted each exhibit hall to basically cover a category of science. So we've got wonders of paleontology, rocks and fossils. We have wonders of biology, living things. We have wonders of zoology. So you will go in there and you're going to see insects, and you will see live geckos, and you'll get to handle a bearded dragon, and then you'll see exotic sea life. We've got wonders of geology, rocks, right? Rocks are not boring at all. We have a fluorescent rock display where you go into a room and you see the most dull rocks that you've ever seen in your life, but then you see this huge green button on the side of the wall. And you press that green button and all of a sudden all the lights in the room go off and boom, you see all of these dull, boring rocks turn blues and pinks and greens and vibrant oranges because all we did was we turned on a few UV lights underneath those rocks, right? So rocks are not boring. Actually, geology is fun. We've got wonders of literature, which is basically the history and accuracy of the Bible with a lot of manuscripts, biblical manuscripts, and historical manuscripts. We've got wonders of astronomy, which takes you deep into space, lets kids touch hands-on massive meteorites that fell from space. You can try to escape from a black hole using these mazes and things, and you can learn about telescopes and what we can discover. We've got wonders of history and archaeology. Yes, archaeology is a scientific study which helps support history, because without this scientific field of archaeology, we would not be able to adequately describe or explain historical references. But because we do have archaeology, now all of a sudden we're learning that the history in the Bible has been correct all along. I could have predicted that. But all throughout the museum, it's over 100,000 square feet. You're going to encounter all of these exhibit halls dedicated to different fields of science. And then we break those scientific principles down, not just simply so an adult can understand them, but then simply so a child can understand them, and then couple it all with hands-on activities so that everybody can grasp it in an easy way, and it makes all the difference in the world. You know, I've never been the brightest student, I've never been the most astute, and yet I love hands-on. I love to have my hands on something and experience history, experience science. Well, that's what we do at the Wonder Center and Science Museum.
That is incredible. And I think it's so cool to study creation. And one of the things I think is so amazing is looking at the ocean. And I think it's only been in the last maybe 15 to 20 years that we've been able to go as deep as we can go, you know, deeper than we've ever been able to go in 6,000 years of creation.
That's right.
And we're seeing ocean life and sea life that no one ever even knew existed. And you think about that and you think, what a crazy, amazing God we have. And he's been enjoying it all this time, right? For thousands and thousands of years since the beginning of creation. He knew all that stuff was there, but that man is just now discovering so much more. And even looking at the universe, like we just continue to discover more and more about his glorious creation. Yeah. And it's incredible.
Even Kepler, which we're going back several hundred years, but he recognized that as well. He described planetary motion. He did so much in astronomy. And his foundational principle was that I praise you, God, because I'm seeing things that for 6,000 years only you have seen, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm getting a glimpse of this piece of your glory.
Yeah.
So what we find is that the more we explore of the natural world, the more it points back to the love, care, diversity, and variety of our Creator. And that's exciting because technology is increasing to the point every week within genetics, we're discovering something new and it points right back to design. Every month, we're discovering something new in oceanography and it points right back to incredible complexity in design.
Yeah. And we get to point our kids to that. What a great privilege we have as parents. So, wow, so much good stuff. We will, again, put links to all things David Rives in the show notes, but tell us one more time where people can find you and your ministry and all you've got going on.
DavidRives.com, David, RIVES.com, to sign up for our weekly email updates. Free bi-monthly print magazine delivered to your door with kids' hands-on activities, science articles, and updates. You can go to GenesisScienceNetwork.com to watch 24/7 content. It's like the Christian version of the Discovery Channel.
Yeah,
we started
so
it
cool.
7 years ago, and you can watch it 24/7 with your kids without having to explain anything or try to de-teach what those episodes are teaching. You can visit us at the Wonder Center and Science Museum in the Nashville region, wonderscenter.org. And then you can, for all resources, go to creationsuperstore.com. There's a lot, but just get involved, sign up for our emails, and follow us on social, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you for what you're doing for the kingdom. It is really remarkable. I love how the Lord is using you and your team. I know you don't do it all alone. I'm certain you've got an incredible team alongside of you to create the things that you've created and to bring the resources to the world, that you have made available. And I love that. I love that you're taking scripture, you're taking science, you're coupling them together, and you're presenting them, to everyone and saying, hey, look at what God has done. Look at this amazing God we serve.
Well, thank you, Yvette, for what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening. If you are not signed up for our newsletter, you can go to our website, schoolhouserocked.com. You can find everything on there. You can find the movie, you can find all of our podcasts on there, and you can sign up for our newsletter, or you can make a donation if you would like, schoolhouserocked.com, to help support the ministry. Have a great rest of your day. Stay tuned at the very end to hear what's coming up next on the podcast, and we will see you back here on Monday with another fantastic guest. Bye.
You're listening to the Biblical Family Network.
Hey, I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And we're the co-hosts of the Culture Proof Podcast. We want to invite you to join us every week as we discuss what's happening in the world and then filter those happenings through a decidedly biblical lens.
There are many questions, especially when we see what's happening in our culture today, but the answers are found within the Word of God. So that's where we want to look.
Amen. When we resist those cultural trends that rival the truth,
we remain culture proof.
In general, kids should be active. Kids are supposed to get like 1 hour of fitness in every day from the time they are young. When they're real young, that can be in the form of play, so just running around. Usually they're gonna get that 1 hour in, but then as they get older, it's really easy for us to forget and to not require it. So I think that really requires us to be intentional. I will confess, and this is a good heads up to the younger or the moms with kids still at home, we probably neglected to touch on some of the things that I remember growing up in public school. So in public school PE, we would do our volleyball unit, our basketball unit. Well, I realized once my older boys were grown up, and one of my sons said something about doing beach volleyball while in college, and it just hit me like, oh my goodness, I don't think I ever taught my sons how to play volleyball. And he's probably making a total fool of himself with no idea how to play it. They're like, oh, you homeschooler. So I was like, shoot, I have to do better with my youngest son.